The latest tech.
People love iPhone, and it's an important part of our daily lives.
Interviews.
You see far too many products that come on the market that you look at that you say, was a blind person ever even consulted for something like this?
Accessibility.
The most interesting thing over the last couple of years is the emphasis on gaming and accessibility.
This is Double Tap TV.
Hi everyone, welcome to the programme. I am Stephen Scott.
And I am Marc Aflalo.
Now Marc, you're Android curious, aren't you?
Oh, I'm really not sure how to answer that question. Are you shaming me?
Well, maybe. But look, in all honesty, we love Google products. Unfortunately, speaking for myself, and I am only speaking for me, I have become so trained and ingrained on Apple's ecosystem and spent a lot of money on it as well, that I find it hard to move into a new platform.
No, come on. I think that anybody who is well accustomed to an operating system, and this works in both directions, and I feel the same way when it comes to Apple stuff. You know, I feel the same. I feel the same kind of shame. But for the sake of this show, and the sake of the people who just don't want to, give in and spend $2,000 for a new iPhone, or even an old iPhone for that matter. We have to look at all sides of the coin and present all the options that are at our disposal. And one of those options happens to be Android. And specifically this week, we're going to be talking about Google's Pixel phones and their new Pixel Watch, which are on top of that list, and for good reason, Stephen.
Yeah, definitely for good reason, because that's what Google phones and watches are like. They're like the Surface laptops of Windows, right? They're the blueprint that Google expects others to use to, create their hardware offerings to run the software so that things like the Android operating system are going to work well. They're going to get the latest updates. They're not going to get clogged down with, custom skins and apps that other Android phone manufacturers are throwing on. Like, for example, let's name names. Samsung, TCL, LG used to do that as well.
Well, I think we call this the vanilla Android experience. And that's why I love playing with the Google devices, Google actual branded devices, because I like getting access to the updates first, but I also like seeing how the company actually intended us to use their devices in the first place.
Okay, so what devices are we going to talk about, Marc? What have you got there?
Ooh, conveniently enough, I've got a couple devices, actually 3 devices to talk about this week, okay? We're going to be talking about the Google Pixel 7, which I've got right here in my hand. Pixel 7, holding up to the camera. We've got the Pixel 7 Pro, which is the larger version of it. We're going to get into the details in a second. Don't worry. And I've got the brand new Pixel Watch. This one I'm super excited to talk about because it really is the first time that Google has ventured down the road into a wearable like this.
Amazing, yes. So where do we start?
Well, we start with a break, Stephen, because we got to catch our breath. We got to get everything ready, make sure everything's charged up, and we'll be ready to go, I promise, very, very soon.
You're still charging stuff up, right? Okay.
Come on. This is Double Tap TV. When we come back, we're going to go hands-on with the new Pixel 7s and the Pixel Watch, so stick around. This is Double Tap TV.
You're watching Double Tap TV. Get involved. Follow us at Double Tap On Air or email us feedback@doubletaponair.com. Double Tap TV will be right back. You're watching Double Tap TV.
We're back talking Google devices. So, Marc, if this is the way Google wants us to experience Android, then I suppose we should talk about the wrapper, the hardware itself on these phones. So maybe you could walk us through them and tell us what sets them apart.
Yeah, well, of course, Stephen, while I walk you through the hardware and talk about the differences, I want to talk about first, I guess, what's the same about these devices, because both of these devices feature the G2 chip from Google, and that's their Tensor processor, okay? This is the actual silicon that they make that powers these devices. Of course, at the end of the day, both of these devices have a brand new camera system on board. We've got a main 50 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 10.8 megapixel front facing camera. We've got smarter voice assistants, that's in common. Of course, a sleeker design. Both are IP68 rated for water and dust resistance, and both are made from recycled features. Now, this is where it gets interesting because there are differences between these two devices. And I'm going to switch to the camera overhead here so you can see them side by side. On the left of your screen, I've got the Pixel 7 Pro. On the right of the screen, I've got the regular Pixel 7. Obviously, the regular Pixel 7 has a smaller display and a smaller footprint. And when you switch to the back, you see only 2 rear cameras. On this interesting hump that expands across the entire width of the device. It's not just a little hump in the corner that unbalances your phone when you're rocking it on a table. This actually goes across the entirety of the device. On the Pixel 7 Non-Pro, it's a matte aluminum kind of nice, camera system. On the actual Pro, it's a shiny aluminum. So this is what lets you realize which one is which. Now, the smaller of the two has a 6.3-inch diagonal screen. The larger of the two has a 6.7-inch diagonal screen. Okay, we know the difference is there. Obviously, the Pixel 7 Pro is physically larger. So what is new in that camera system? Well, when you look at the camera system, you have one extra camera. It's an extra circle there entirely, and that is a telephoto lens that features a new macro mode. Of course, to power all this, a larger battery as well. Also, Pixel 7 Pro has that, I said, the polished aluminum finish around the cameras versus the matte finish on the Pixel 7. But the 7 Pro has a 120 Hz screen versus the 90 Hz screen on the regular 7. How is that different? Well, you really only notice it when you're scrolling through things, or if you're watching high resolution things, or even playing games, you'll notice that it's a lot smoother. I always try to explain this when people, for example, use the hockey analogy or any kind of sports. If a puck is zooming past your screen, on 120 Hz, you'll be able to see that puck as it moves across the screen. On 90 Hz, it's going to look more like a blur across the screen. So sharper, more rich when you're actually scrolling. Now, 7 Pro has 12 gigs of RAM on board, which means the operating system is a little zippier than that of the regular 7. Battery life, I mentioned, of course, 5,000 milliamp battery on the Pro versus 4,355 on the regular. But the similarities obviously blend together, Stephen, when it comes to the software side of things.
Absolutely. So let's dive into some of that software, specifically around accessibility features, Mark. And one I want to start with is a new feature that came in just at the tail end of last year, and that is audio description. Now, you know what audio description is on an Android phone, right?
Of course I do, but you'll explain it and tell us how to enable it, right?
So, if you go to Netflix or you go to Prime Video or you go to any video perhaps that's on the Google Play Store that you've maybe bought and downloaded, then, you can enable what's called audio description or described video. And essentially what that is it's the secondary audio track that describes the action on screen in the same way that, for example, subtitles display the text during dialogue on screen during a movie or a TV show. So it's a really useful tool. It's something we use a lot as blind people. Frankly, I couldn't watch TV without it, or movies for that matter. If a show doesn't have described video, I'm not interested because I will not understand what's going on. So, when the killer reaches for the knife and, does something, or someone picks up a phone or someone sends a text, and it's not explained as to what is going on, that is relayed through audio description. So really, really useful. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how to turn this on. So what to do is go to your device, go to the settings app on your Android phone, and then what I want you to do is scroll down and tap the accessibility section. And once you get in there, you'll scroll to the audio section. And in there is where you'll find the audio description option, and all you have to do is flip the toggle to on.
Stephen, one of the things that Android 13 now supports out of the box is Braille displays. How do those work with a phone?
So a Braille display is, think of it like a keyboard, right? So obviously this is a keyboard with a little bit extra because it has almost like a monitor built in, a single line of text monitor, if that's the way to think about it. So it connects in the same way that you would connect your keyboard. So, and a lot of people don't do this, I imagine, but in the blind world, this is quite common, where blind people will take a keyboard. I have in front of me here, and I'm holding up to the camera, my Apple Magic keyboard, which is just a very small laptop-style keyboard. I can connect that via Bluetooth straight to my Android device or my iPhone, and that can be really, really useful. In, for example, editing text, sending a message, whatever it might be. Well, it's exactly the same with a Braille display. That is how it connects in exactly that way. But of course, the difference is that you have that display as well. So not only am I able to input text, I'm able to read it back, what I am also hearing and what I'm also being able to see on the screen, because that is coming up on the display in Braille. So, just think of it like a keyboard, Mark.
Okay, well, but for those people who don't want to use a keyboard, of course, the screen reader on Android is called TalkBack. Can you walk us through actually turning TalkBack on the new Android devices?
Okay, so what you can do, again, back into the Settings app is where we go. And we're going to open up the accessibility section here. And this is where all the tools live. So under Screen Reader, you'll see an option for TalkBack. And then all you have to do, it's really simple, is just flip Use TalkBack Toggle to On. Now, when you do this for the first time, you'll be brought up with a question asking you to allow TalkBack to control your device. And then once that's activated, your device will basically read to you what's on your screen. Now, here's how you interact with your device when you're using TalkBack. You swipe left or right to move through items on your screen. So the item you're interacting with is actually highlighted on screen by a green box. And you can change all that in settings. You can have different colors. In order to activate something, you double tap on it, and that might give you an indication of why we call this show Double Tap. So that is exactly what you do. You double tap on an item where you would single tap without TalkBack. And if you want to move around the screen, you can drag 2 fingers on your screen to scroll through content, so lists, for example. So that's just a very basic way and a very basic tutorial, Mark, on how to sort of get into starting using TalkBack.
Stephen, you also may have noticed while I was going through the menu, we has actually a TalkBack shortcut, which when you enable it, enables you to triple press the side button, the home button on the device, which enables TalkBack as well. That's a really cool shortcut to turn that on and off really quickly.
And you should find when you're setting up your device for the first time that triple click option is available to you.
That's brilliant. Now, the other feature, Stephen, that I think is super important to know about is text modification. And not only for accessibility purposes, because if you want to make the screen size and the font size larger, it's actually easy to do. So we're going to open the Settings app. I'm going to go to the overhead camera. We're going to swipe down twice. We're going to open the Settings app here. We're going to click Display under the Display section. So just hit Display. And under the Display section, you will see Display Size and Text. Here, you can modify the font size, you can modify the display size, which shows you the icons and shows you in real time what the preview will look like on your screen. Of course, you can toggle bold and high contrast text with all these options. You can even customize the text experience to give your phone the best visibility for you that makes it easier for you.
Yeah, and I mean, that can benefit so many people, Mark, right? How many times have you probably looked at your phone and thought, I could just do with this text size being a little bit bigger? So, that's what these accessibility tools are all about. Now, there's also one other one to mention, and that is magnification. Now, that lets you zoom in on items on the screen and make them easier to see. So, whether you want to zoom in on the entire screen or even just parts of the screen, you can do that, and actually can even magnify text as you type. So once again, to turn it on, I just want to quickly show you this. Go to Settings, go back into your accessibility section. Everything lives under there. Under Display, select Magnification, and then you can flip the toggle next to Magnification. That shortcut will then turn on. And that's it. And there's now going to be a shortcut on your screen to activate the feature, which is just brilliant. And when it's active, you just drag 2 fingers to move the magnification around the screen and just pinch 2 fingers to adjust the zoom magnification, just like you would with photos.
Stephen, there's a feature that people have been emailing us a lot about, and that is guided frame. We talked about it when they first announced the Pixel 7 and the 7 Pro, and that's because friend of the show, Molly Burke, was actually featured in the keynote talking about this specific feature, guided frame. So people have been asking us where they can find that and where they can see it again. So rather than try to find it online, take a look right now at Molly Burke describing what guided frame is on Android 13.
A G logo made by Google. Text appears as a person with glasses steps through a doorway and starts down a hall. Pixel 7, guided frame. Stepping outdoors, the person holds out their phone with the screen facing them and shuts their eyes, then follows the phone's commands.
One face. Move your phone slightly left and down.
Another person holds out their phone and the view shows the phone screen. A yellow circle highlights the person's face and they pose with a smile.
3, 2, 1. Photo taken. One face.
Oh my
One
god, I
face.
love
Selfie.
this.
Move your phone right and up.
My name is Molly Burke. I'm a social media content creator and motivational speaker who happens to be blind. So often, I find accessibility is focused on making sure disabled people can do the bare minimum to get by.
Molly puts on a sweater and pets the dog, then taps on the screen of the Google Pixel phone.
It's important that accessibility not just focus on designing things to make disabled people function, but also empower them to have fun in life again.
Elsewhere, the person with glasses carries a notebook into a doorway and sits down, opening the notebook.
I'm Lincoln Wang. I'm one of the original creators of Guided Frame. Guided Frame is a smart selfie feature that helps blind and low vision users to take a beautiful selfie.
Ling Yua sits at an open laptop and pulls up images of a Google Pixel phone with the camera open and the yellow circles surrounding a person's face. Ling Yua writes in the notebook, then uses the Guided Frame feature outdoors with their eyes shut.
Photo taken.
Selfie to me and to many blind users, I think, is a way they express themselves.
For so long, I couldn't take selfies because I could never frame it correctly. I would try to show a friend a new t-shirt that I got, and I'd be like, look at how cute this top is, and I'd text her a selfie, and she'd be like, yeah, I can't see it at all.
Lying on a colorful rug in the fur jacket, Molly lifts the phone overhead to take a selfie.
My mom is an incredible photographer, but I don't want to always have to rely on my mom to take my photos.
Molly sits up, moving out of view. Over the red comforter, white text appears. Pixel 7, Guided Frame.
That's one of those basic everyday things that gives you that independence that we as disabled people crave.
Red, yellow, green, and blue swatches swirl into the Google G.
Steve, there's also other features that are good for color blindness, such as color and motion settings. There's RTT, which stands for real-time text. That's great for people who are hard of hearing or people who have a speech disability. If they want to be able to converse with someone on the other end, they can actually type their answers and have a conversation in real time. And of course, we'll link to all these on our social media, which is at @DoubleTapOnAir.
Now, still to come on Double Tap TV, we're going to talk about the Pixel Watch. Stick around.
Can't get enough Double Tap TV? Subscribe to the podcast and get your fill of Double Tap every day. Visit doubletaponair.com and follow us now. Double Tap TV will be right back. You're watching Double Tap TV.
Okay, Mark, let's talk about this new Pixel Watch then. This is the first Google-built smartwatch featuring Fitbit features and Wear OS.
Yeah, definitely. But first, I think we really got to talk about the hardware, Stephen, because this is an entirely new design for a watch that we've ever seen. I mean, we're used to the Apple Watch. They're all stainless steel. There are 3 color options available for this, okay? There's a matte black, which is the one I'm holding right now. It's a matte black design. There's a polished silver one, which is shiny, and there's a champagne gold. It's made from 80% recycled stainless steel. There's an active band, they're calling it. It's soft touch design, much like the Apple Watch Sports Band. The watch itself, 41 millimeters around in diameter, measures about 12.3 millimeters thick, and it's light. It's just about 36 grams without the band. Now, all the watches feature Bluetooth 5, LTE, Wi-Fi, there's NFC for payments and purchasing, GPS on board, rounded Gorilla Glass, which we'll talk about in a minute, 320 pixel AMOLED display with brightness up to 1,000 nits and an always-on display. 1,000 nits is super bright, and that's not normally something you see on a watch. It charges with a USB magnetic charger that just snaps on the back, and it comes, of course, with a USB-C cable. On board, hardware-wise, we've got sensors, compass, altimeter, blood oxygen sensor, heart rate sensor, accelerometer, gyroscope, ambient light sensor, so it knows when you're actually in a room with a lot of light. There's a side button. There's a haptic crown, so you're going to get haptic feedback when you touch that side button. A built-in microphone, a built-in speaker. It supports Fitbit Health and Fitness. It supports Google Maps, Google Wallet, Google Assistant, messages and notifications, not only in Android, also on other operating systems like iOS. It features YouTube Music, NFC, which I talked about, emergency calling, fall detection, interchangeable band design, and finally, as I mentioned, the glass, it's Gorilla Glass 5, which is super, super strong, at least supposed to be. And the whole watch is rated at 5 ATM, which stands for atmospheres. And that means this watch can withstand pressures up to 50 meters or 160 feet underwater. Whew!
Wow, that's quite a lot. I feel you maybe need to come up for air yourself.
Yeah, you think.
What about Wear OS, though, the software that runs on this?
Okay, so Wear OS is Google's wearable platform. It features a card-based design that was first introduced on Google Glass. It lets you swipe up, it lets you swipe down, it lets you swipe right, it lets you swipe left, all through these card-based systems, okay? And of course, apps and everything that you might have on board. Interesting design because everything is either a swipe to the left or a swipe to the right. Now, accessibility-wise, there's TalkBack, which you can set up when you first turn on the watch. Super easy to turn on. Once you power it up for the first time, you press 2 fingers on the watch screen and you'll actually hear a sound, which means TalkBack is on. It's that simple. Now, if you didn't set that up from the start, all you got to do is navigate to the settings, which is a swipe down from the top. You hit the settings button, you tap accessibility. I just hit connectivity instead of accessibility. You just go back and you go to accessibility and you can enable it right there. You can of course change the font size under accessibility and other display features, plus this magnification as well. So basically everything you rely on accessibility wise with Android 13, you can also get on the Google Pixel Watch, which is pretty cool itself.
And of course, once TalkBack is on, you can use TalkBack gestures like we were talking about on Android, on the Google Pixel phone. You can browse the web with Chrome as well, although I can't quite imagine how that would work. Use TalkBack on menus as well. That's really where it's important. And just really, not only that, you can control this whole thing with your voice.
Exactly. And Stephen, you know what, overall, you know, this is a pretty interesting offering. I'm a bit worried about the rounded glass because when you look at it from a side point of view, it has a tip in the middle because it's rounded. So that really is a magnet for any kind of surfaces that you might be walking around and hitting into. But that being said, it is Gorilla Glass 5, so it should be pretty strong, and we'll see how it fares after a little bit of time on the wrist and time wearing it. But, you know, I'm curious, honestly, if anybody at home actually has one of these watches because they're pretty new, and I'm curious to know what our audience feels about, you know, the experience, the way they use it, the different scenarios they might have used it in. I'm curious about those experiences, so let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had my own experiences with Android watches. They haven't all been brilliant, so I'm really intrigued to see what the Google Pixel Watch can do and really put it through its paces at some point. It sounds like you're having a lot of fun with yours. Do get in touch with us. That is what we really crave here at Double Tap TV, is your feedback, so please do get in touch.
We crave your attention, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. That is all we have for today. Thank you for watching, and we'll chat next week.
Thanks for watching Double Tap. Send us your feedback to feedback@doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. Hosted by Marc Aflalo in Montreal and Stephen Scott in Glasgow. Producer Marc Aflalo. Editing and graphics Jordan Steves. Voiceover Anna Vicino. Social media Wendy Kaufman. Integrated Described Video Specialist M. Williams. Supervising Producer Michelle Dudas. Manager Programming AMI TV Lizanne Gagne. Director Content Development and Production Karen Nye. VP Content Development and Programming John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Copyright 2023 Accessible Media Inc.